What is China going to do? It's an interesting tweet from a guy who's lived in China for 30 years. Just put it up there on the screen. David Moser, he's a sinologist. He says, quote, "I have lived in China for 30 years. I have never seen such brazenly open, sustained expression of rage. WeChat is exploding with protest videos and furious vitriol. Civil disobedience is becoming rampant. This is a serious test of CCP governance." And of course, the question comes, what are they going to do? Well, so far, they've done what they mostly do best, which is using force against these lockdown protesters. Let's go ahead and put this one up there on the screen. You can actually see this video. It shows a man, standing in front of a police car, basically, the van being used to press and harass protesters. And across the entire country, you're seeing mass, arrests. Here, you're seeing a violent takedown of, I think he was an older man. It's difficult to tell, but you can see very forcibly restrained. This is something that you have seen all across China, being dragged off to God knows where, and for what exactly will happen to him, which is really the scariest point about all of this. And unfortunately, it really confirms Xi Jinping's central governance and the way that he has handled almost all protests. So let's go put the next one up there. I thought it was important to highlight this, which is, look, Xi really was tested for the first time with mass protests in Hong Kong. After the pass of that Hong Kong special law, which effectively gave the CCP more control and their ability to govern Hong Kong, with outside of the whole one country, two systems, the crackdown that happened on Hong Kong throughout 2019 and then beginning of COVID and leading to effectively a full-scale crackdown, not only arrest of anybody in the press, but any protesters in the street, moving the military in. There's a lot of theory, Krystal, that if COVID had not happened, that they would have done a Tiananmen level takeover of Hong Kong.
Wow.
Because, I actually remember covering it with you at the time. Remember all those photos of convoys of military and police moving from all across the country towards Hong Kong?
Yeah.
That is a central lesson for Xi Jinping. And he can take away from it and say, hey, it worked. It was painful. We got criticized in the press, in the West, elsewhere. But at the end of the day, we took Hong Kong and now we fully and tightly control it under the boot. And unfortunately, this is a lesson that he has internalized for a long time from his youth. Let's put this final one up there because I think this is important. I remember reading it at the time. I think it's important to highlight. It's called Xi Jinping's Tiananmen Family Lessons. And he says, one of the things that he learned from his father, quote, is that the party comes first, and that his experience of Tiananmen Square, really of protests in general, is that he sees protests as, quote, chaos. He says, quote, "Xi sees the student protests as chaos similar to the destruction of the Cultural Revolution. The Xi family suffered terribly during Mao Zedong's campaign and the resulting political turmoil. His father was kidnapped by Red Guards and forcibly brought to Xi'an, where he was subjected to struggle sessions and later incarcerated in the capital. Xi Jinping was even berated for his father's supposed failings as a class enemy." So the scars of the Cultural Revolution and of such an immense fear of chaos is effectively what led to the Tiananmen Square massacre in the first place. It was the lesson that Xi has internalized for Hong Kong. And unfortunately, I do think, given everything that we see right now, the CCP always reaches for more oppression, for more control, and all at the liberty of use of force that they have a complete monopoly on in their country.
The next chief executive of Hong Kong that they appointed is literally a cop who was charged with cracking down on the protesters, just to give you a sense. And so the visit there is incredibly symbolically significant. It's a victory lap. It's a show to the international community of, look, this is what we did, and we really don't care what you had to say about it. And so, I think China is in a very tough place. The Chinese government is in a very tough place about how exactly they get out of COVID-0, how exactly they move forward, just because of what they have done up to this point, allowing people to believe they could rely on the zero COVID policies, that they don't have to get vaccinated, leaning almost exclusively on a Sinovac vaccine that is less effective. And so now you're in this situation where they're sort of damned if they do and damned if they don't, and the population obviously getting extraordinarily restless. So. Listen, obviously, China is an incredibly significant global player. The Biden administration has been, following sort of in the footsteps of the Trump administration, reorienting our relationship towards China. These things have incredible global significance, and so that's why we're going to keep keeping an eye on it.
Have to. Have no choice to. Could have massive implications. Look, don't forget, countries that feel under the gun often do crazy and erroneous things. Just ask Ukraine. for what that looks like. Another important point that Matt Stoller has continued to make is that the Chinese government is set up for economic growth. They have not had an economic downturn since 1976. The modern CCP is built on the back of 8% annualized massive industrial growth. Well, COVID, the supply chain, resulting global inflation, and COVID lockdowns and COVID zero in particular, that's not happening. So for the very first time, their social contract is failing. What will they choose? Unfortunately, history tells us almost certainly they will choose oppression and violence. And that could, of course, have major geopolitical implications.
Well, and she has signaled as much
Yeah.
that they're shifting from that extraordinary growth phase into a phase of sort of, certainly power consolidation, loyalty consolidation, and, moving forward with their Chinese nationalist project. So they were already moving in this direction, and COVID has certainly accelerated it.
Absolutely.
So we will see where we go from here. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.